For our final closing session of the day, we have Honorable Ann K. McKeig. Justice McKeig joined the Minnesota Supreme Court in September 2016, making her the first female Native American to sit on any state Supreme Court in the United States. A descendant of the White Earth Nation, Justice McKeig is a native of Federal Dam, Minnesota, where she grew up on the Leech Lake Reservation. Her perspective from the bench will address the importance of birth and foster parent relationships. Welcome, Justice McKeig, and many thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. And I've noted the number of participants. So if any of you drop off now, I'm going to know it. And then I'm going to have them tell me the person who dropped off, and then I shall contact you individually. So if you have others who dropped off before I got on here, make sure you give them heat about having dropped off early. First, I just want to say thank you to all of you. There's over 400 of you who participate in this. And in the world of child welfare, I think it is the most important work that anyone can do in the state of Minnesota. I think it is also the hardest work. And I think that you are one of the groups that is least often thanked. So thank you for all that you do for kids and families that you work with. I am sure you are all exhausted by Zoom. Some of the things that I think are interesting about Zoom is that we learn things about ourselves. For me, it is that I appear to have no upper lip. Now, I've been told in my lifetime that I actually had full lips. But now that I have been on all these Zoom calls for the last couple of years, it has been determined that I, in fact, do not. So I guess Zoom has been good for some things. And I say that just to sort of lighten the mood because you've all been listening to extremely heavy information. And it is also very heavy work that you all do every day. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of the bench as a team member for all of you who do the work, because sometimes I feel like we seem to be removed from the process, and perhaps it might appear that we don't care, or that we are not as involved, or that we're just up there making decisions and perhaps being too critical of all of those who are coming before the court. But I assure you that is not the case. Like yourselves, it is extremely traumatic work for judges who do this work on a daily basis, because many of us take it home with us. And that impacts the way that we parent our own families. It impacts the way that we interact with our community. And yet I think those of us who dive into this work and do it the way that it is needed to be done must do that in order to actually do the work well. And I can't say enough about all of the work that Minnesota is doing. You know, we all listen to different perspectives. I was listening today from the time that it began, and I think it is great that the University of Minnesota through this program is actually able to pull together lots of different perspectives. I know that there are times when I have listened to other presentations in my career where I have perhaps cringed, or I have felt defensive, or I have started to wonder where this person was coming from. And yet at the same time, I do think it is important that we can all listen to those different perspectives and draw from those various aspects what might be helpful to us in the work that we do on an everyday basis. So from the bench's perspective, it is really important that we continue to strive to do better by our kids and our families. You know, it is interesting, when I left my work as a county attorney and moved to the district court bench and now on the Supreme Court, I sort of stepped out of my role as a county attorney representing social workers and was looking at it from perhaps some, not just from the bench perspective, but tying into some individuals that I had once removed when I was a county attorney. And seeing things from sort of that view as well led me to look at some of the flaws in the system, but also the incredible need for us to continue to care about the work that we do and to get it right. Because I do think that this is an area where if we do get the work right, we can have a really positive impact on reducing those who are involved in the criminal justice system all the way across. And I give an example of a young man that I had removed when he was 2 years old. He had been a victim of sexual abuse, of physical abuse, horrific, 17 different placements during his lifetime. He ended up graduating into delinquency and ultimately, unfortunately, into the adult criminal world, where he spent the majority of his life. And looking back, I can see all of the different points of decision making along the way. And I also think that if there was a lot more support for him, not only as a child moving and growing into the system and growing up in the system, but also to his family, where we weren't all just combating each other. Because a lot of times when I started out, it really was, usually you had sort of two different sides of the aisle. And some kids were definitely lost in litigation. So the idea of being able to partner families with really experienced foster families who have really great experience in parenting children, and sometimes children who have challenges, I think is a long way towards healing a system that is incredibly difficult for everyone. And I was listening to some of the things today about, if you can imagine yourself as the parent, which I have tried to do, of having my child perhaps taken away or removed, and then thinking about how would I feel about them going to a stranger care if it wasn't some family or friend, and not having any further information, as is often the case for quite a period of time. And it would be extremely frightening. So when you think about I think you guys call them care calls or something along those lines, where you can check in with the parent from the foster family and make those connections. I think that goes a long ways towards at least healing some of those relationships. It doesn't mean that it's going to be perfect, but it certainly is something that I know that the bench supports, because what we really want is for these kids who are the focus of these proceedings to do the very best that they can. And that really means sort of getting all of the adults to get onto the same page. And that can be challenging from so many ways. And also when you look at it from a perspective of we all have to work within a system, and the system is imperfect because the system is run by all of us, and including our legislators. And yet I still think that we have to do so much more about bringing the outside world in to learning the work that you do, and to appreciating the work that you do, and knowing the challenges and accepting the challenges. And for those that we don't want to accept, to really doing so much better. I also wanted to just say that don't be afraid of the bench, invite the bench to be your partner, educate the bench. Not everyone who shows up in juvenile court or doing these cases shows up with wisdom. I always said that when I was appointed to the bench, I came with what I knew, but I also came with what I didn't know. We don't have any sort of great special training that happens for judges when they become judges. You take with us where we come from, our different perspectives, and our imperfections. And sometimes that can come out sideways, I think, particularly in juvenile court. So don't be afraid of making the bench your partner in system change and in the ways that you are implementing these cases and building these relationships, because after all, it really is one giant team. And that's what you want, is to have a group of people who are working together. I always thought that I would never want to be the single person who had this child's life or future hanging solely on my shoulders. It is so much better when it is a collective group together. And I will say that one of the best models that I experienced was when I was working as a county attorney, and there was a partnership built between the county attorney's office, the public defender's office at the time, and the Indian Child Welfare Law Center, and the bench, and the guardian ad litem office, as well as other professionals within the community. And it was difficult work. It was challenging work. We got around and we sat around tables and we hashed out sort of a loose structure as to how we were going to do these cases. But having to come back to the table every day and working with each other, I think led to some really promising changes that were positive. And it was also built an infrastructure that was really strong. But it could not have been done if we did not have the bench as a part of that plan, as well as a part of the decision making. Because one thing I have learned, that when you become a judge or a justice, is if you plan a meeting, a lot of people will come, because a judge is the one who planned the meeting. And so there is power in that position. And we should be a partner that you can actually tap to, that you can call upon to invite to help make some of these changes. Not all of the changes will always work. And obviously you have to do them within the boundaries of the system of which we work, but it doesn't mean that we can't bust out and do some other positive things, because after all, we're Minnesotans, and I know that there has been sometimes a lot of criticism of the child welfare work done in Minnesota, but as somebody who's done it since 1992, I also think that we have an awful lot to be proud of. I think Minnesotans are never just willing to sit back and accept the status quo. We are always trying to do better. And that is why when you can have an exchange of all of these different ideas from different jurisdictions, some of which may ring true, some of which may sound perhaps not so true or not something that we would want to take on as a state, it's important that we can have that exchange of ideas. So, the bench recognizes the work that you do. We aren't always very good about saying thank you or acknowledging the difficulties of the work that you do because you're all in the moment and trying to get a task done. But I do want you to know that the state of Minnesota has about 300 judges. We've got, I think, 26 appellate judges, and we all recognize that this is incredibly important work and incredibly challenging work. And we know that when it is done correctly, we do see a reduction in the youth that actually start out as young children and unfortunately graduate to the delinquency and sometimes into the adult criminal world, which is nowhere we would want any of our youth to be. And it really is all about the kids. And the kids need their families, but obviously they need their families to be well, and they need allies, and that's the foster parents. And so when you can have a system built around allies and relationships and working hard at making those relationships better, it is only going to trickle down and have the positive impact on our kids. So I just want to acknowledge you, and I want you to reach out to your district court judges and invite them to, whether it's a ride along for it's a job that you do and you want them to see what it's like from your perspective. It will only enhance, I think, their ability to make better decisions on the bench. And if there are issues that you think the bench could be doing better, I certainly am wanting to hear that myself. I work on the Children's Justice Initiative, which is we're a statewide committee that works on the child welfare issues, and we work hand in hand also with the University of Minnesota. So we do want to hear the criticisms as well as if we're doing something right, because we don't often always talk about what we're doing right. And so I wanted to just sort of leave something with you, and that is that it is a saying that was once told to me many, many years ago in my work. And some people call it a prayer. Some people call it a thought. Some people call it, I don't know, whatever words you want to choose to use it. But I think it is very reflective of what's going on today. And I hope that you will find something in what I'm going to read to you to be helpful. It is a Lakota saying. And I think it speaks very much to the fact that we are all related. We are all interwoven together. And therefore, we all are invested or should be invested in each other and not just in ourselves. So miigwech to all of you. And to this I say, to the Creator for the ultimate gift of life, I thank you. To the mineral nation that has built and maintained my bones and all foundations of life experience, I thank you. To the plant nation that sustains my organs and body and gives me healing and herbs for sickness, I thank you. To the animal nation that feeds me from your own flesh and offers your loyal companionship in this walk of life, I thank you. To the human nation that shares my path as a soul upon the sacred wheel of earthly life, I thank you. To the spirit nation that guides me invisibly through the ups and downs of life and for carrying the torch of light through the ages, I thank you. To the four winds of change and growth, I thank you. You are all my relations, my relatives, without whom I would not live. We are in the circle of life together, coexisting, codependent, co-creating our destiny, one not more important than the other, one nation evolving from the other, and yet each dependent upon the one above and the one below, all of us a part of the great mystery. Miigwech.
Thank you so much, Justice McKeig. It's so helpful to have the perspective of the bench as such a critical part of the work that we do collaboratively, from community partners to our child welfare professionals and our tribal professionals. So thank you again. I want to thank all the participants. I know you're going to want to hear logistics in terms of CEUs and things like that. And Stacy will jump on in just a minute to give you that. In the meantime, again, I really want to thank everybody who attended today and or those who attended both yesterday and today. I think we heard a variety of perspectives as Justice talked about. I do believe it is the role of the university, and we are called upon to bring together people with all kinds of different perspectives to be able to learn from each other, to be able to hear and listen and challenge our own thoughts and biases and perspectives of quote unquote truth. So I hope that you continue to seek opportunities like this in university settings as well as in community settings to really challenge yourself, challenge your thinking, challenge your practice, and to be able to have open, honest conversations that aren't always easy, but are always important. So with that, I will turn it over to Stacy and thank again our CASCW outreach team for all of their work on this conference and each and every one of you for showing up and participating.
Thank you, Tracy. Before we get to the final logistics, we are going to put MJ's study in the chat for those of you asking, and we'll put it on our website as well. There's a lot of people who are wondering about that. So final wrap up, CEUs will be emailed to all attendees within a week of this conference. The conference recording will be posted on the website for everybody to see, and we encourage you to circulate the information as much as you can. The presenter PowerPoint slides will be available as well on our website. And then we will have an evaluation as soon as the Zoom closes. We really encourage your feedback. We got great feedback yesterday, great participation. So please take a couple minutes, a couple moments to fill out the evaluation. And if you would like to share more feedback, email us, please, at cashew@umn.edu. And just a final thank you to everybody for attending, for your time. We know that 2 days, 6 hours on Zoom is a long time, but we really do hope that you learned a lot and that you will check out all of the additional resources on our website and hopefully you've learned some new things. So thank you to everybody. We're going to end a few minutes early. Please reach out with questions and have a great afternoon. Thank you.